Take 27. Hey guys, how's it going? So I hope you're having a good day today, and I hope all is going well with you. So today we're going to do another radio story. And for today's radio story, we're going to talk about how a group of listeners stopped a format change from happening at a station in Madison, Wisconsin. So today we're going to talk about 92.1 The Mic, and mic as in microphone, and how a group of listeners stopped the mic's format from going away. So we'll start from the very beginning. On the 92.1 signal in Madison, Wisconsin, they've had a few formats, but not a ton of formats. The station's transmitter is located just outside of Madison in a town called Sun Prairie. So the station started out as a top 40 station, and then in the I believe it was in the late 80s, early 90s, they became Mad Radio, WMAD, as an alternative rock station. And the call letters by that time were changed to WMAD. And Mad Radio had a pretty good audience, and they did okay. But in 2002, Clear Channel Communications, now iHeartRadio, decided to change the format of 92.1. So Mad Radio became Mix 92.1 with, and they changed the call letters to WXXM, which they had just acquired from a station in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that had recently relinquished the call letters. So Mix did not live up to expectations. It was near the bottom of the ratings in the Madison radio market. So around this time, there was a new radio network that had formed and launched. It was called Air America. And if you guys aren't familiar with Air America, it was a radio network that was dedicated to progressive left-wing, politically left-wing radio programs to counteract like a lot of talk radio that was right-wing, which talk radio is primarily right-wing. Still is today, you know, your Rush Limbaugh's, your Sean Hannity's, Michael Savage, people like that. Well, since the town of Madison typically has a population that tends to be politically liberal, it seemed like Air America and a liberal talk format would be a good match for the market. Now, what's unusual here is 92.1 was one of the few FM stations, maybe the only FM stations, that carried the Air America format. Because a lot of other stations that carried the format were like lower powered AM stations that would usually be like religious or foreign language. Like some of them were like at the top of the AM dial, like AM 1570 or, you know, something like that, or on some station that was 250 watt days and one watt at nights or something, you know, something like that. Well, nevertheless, the mic launched in, I believe it was late 2004, and the station started to get a bit of a following. While it wasn't a big ratings getter, the ratings were respectable. I mean, they were typically in about the mid twos or so. So they had a dedicated audience. And at first, the station aired mostly all Air America programming, although later on they would add a couple of local shows, and then eventually they would add. They would add a couple of other shows that were outside of the Air America radio network. And things seemed to be going okay. Well, in late 2006, management started getting ideas about changing the mic's format, as they felt that if they went to a different format, it would make more money than the mic did. The mic build, I would say, maybe kind of mediocre. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. That because even in a liberal area, that was a hard format to sell. So in the late fall of 2006, it was announced that 92.1 would be changing format to sports, carrying mostly Fox Sports Radio, and that it would start around Christmas. Well, this drew ire to some of the Mike's audience. And as a matter of fact, and I'm going to read off my notes here just for a second here. There was a loyal listener that decided to launch an online petition. Her name was Valerie Walasek, and she decided to launch a petition online to save the mic. And there was an online petition, and I believe there may have been like a traditional like door-to-door petition. And that got about 5,000 signatures or so. And a protest was actually held outside of Clear Channel's offices in Madison. And they even held a funeral for the mic, I believe, and there was enough people. And they even delivered a petition to the management there at Clear Channel Madison. And they looked at it and they said, well, that's fine, but we're still changing the format. Well, this drew ire. This drew ire even outside the Madison radio market, and a couple of hosts, syndicated hosts, caught wind of this. Mainly the late Ed Schultz, which if you remember him, he had a show on MSNBC too. But anyway, Schultz kind of went on a tirade on the air, and he called out Clear Channel, and he called out station management by name. The station management in Madison. Well, one thing led to another, and they decided to cancel the format change. But the thing was that they had the format all set up. They had the station logo. They had the shows already, station liners, everything. Well, it turns out that they had to, and I'm not sure how much money this cost them, but they ended up having to break a contract with a couple of shows. The Jim Rome show was actually slated to start on the station like the following Monday. But all of that was canceled at the last hour, and the format remained. While the mic got saved, it was saved with a bit of a mixed result. Over the following years, the station seemed to lack any kind of direction. While they definitely kept some of the liberal shows, some other stuff was starting to creep in. Like at one point, they had aired the Dave Ramsey show, which drew ire from listeners because Dave Ramsey tends to lean conservative and is a conservative Christian. Now, Ramsey's become more vocal about his political views in more recent years, but in the past, he was a bit more subdued. And sports started appearing on the station. Well, Air America went bankrupt and went off the air in 2010, and the station had to scramble for new programming. And they added some other shows, and one of the biggest shows, of course, was the Thom Hartmann Show, which is probably still today one of the better known progressive talk shows. At least that's on over-the-air radio. And I didn't actually know this, but the Young Turks were actually part of Air America at one point, who have probably one of the biggest online shows on YouTube. I don't listen to it, but I've heard of it. I've watched some of the videos a couple of times, but it's not really something I really watch. But anyway, the mic. But anyway, over the years, the mic drew kind of mixed listenership. The ratings again stayed kind of steady, but they were on the downward spiral. The end of the mic came in late 2016 after the 2016 presidential election. The station, management at the station said that they were planning on changing the mic's format regardless of who won the presidential election. And of course, Donald Trump won the presidential election by a major upset. But even if Hillary Clinton had won, the format still would have changed. And the format ended up changing to classic hits, which it is today. But nevertheless, with the mic, it was an interesting format, and it was so interesting that in the age of corporate radio that a group of listeners was able to stop a format change from happening. Now, 20 years later, I don't know if something like that would happen today, because there's much more choices, because you got to figure back in 2006, people didn't have smartphones. Not too many people had Sirius XM, and I don't know if even Progressive Talk was available on Sirius XM back then. So there weren't quite as many listening choices as there is now, so I doubt something like that would happen now. But nevertheless, it was pretty cool how a group of citizens stood up to a corporate behemoth and won. So I just thought that was an interesting story. Well, guys, what do you think? Do I have any people from here watching from Madison, Wisconsin, or from Wisconsin in general? Let me know. What do you guys think of this story? Are you familiar with it? Have you heard of this? Let me know in the comments. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And as always, guys, have a great rest of your day.